Well, welcome back to another edition of our Heart Driven Hustle Create the Ripple podcast. We're having a lot of fun here. I have a pretty special guest with me today, and she and I go way back, like we're talking way back. But before I get too far into that, I want to say a big, huge thank you to Candice Gish and the Divas That Care Network, which allows us to host this. So if you're listening to this for the first time, please head over to Divas That Care. There's a ton of different women who are on plan, on point, living in their truth, and they are sharing amazing interviews just like this one. Now, for those of us who are putting out content in the world, and for those of you who are listening, it actually matters a lot to us when you take the time to like, to follow, to love us, to subscribe. So that's my ask of you today. If you get value out of this, that you like it, you share it, you comment on it, you subscribe to what we're doing, because that is really the biggest and best thing that you can do to show us that what we're putting out there for you right now is actually making a difference. So you can catch this and other interviews just like that on the Divas That Care Network, as well as, of course, whatever YouTube channel or Facebook page you found us on. Make sure that you are leaving the love behind when you go. So today, my guests, oh my goodness, Shelby, you and I go back. Like, I'm thinking way back. Okay. So it's been kind of fun because for the most part, Shelby, this podcast was started largely because I love, creating the space to chat with women who are on plan, on purpose, and really doing what they're called to do. And we're finding that right now is, of course, an incredible time to put out great content because we're all sort of stuck at home. And so we're looking for unique ways to find each other. And I know that for you, you've really had a journey, and I've been a part of that in various ways. Throughout, our stories have often mirrored each other, right? We both have young kids. My tiny human is going to be 5 in like 3 or 4 sleeps, man. Like it's crazy. I know. I think to myself, what the heck have I done with myself in the last 5 years? Oh, right. Raised her. So your little tiny human is in the background, and I have promised people that these stay unedited, but for those people listening in, we may pause recording if we need to go and deal with that. But it's neat in that sense, Shelby, because you coach mothers. So for the mamas in the room, this is your cue to move baby to the other hip and take a listen because this is definitely going to be a podcast for you. So Shelby, you've had quite a journey, and I've been sort of on the fringes watching that. So, for the people who are listening in, I always get a questionnaire sent out, so I have some kind of an idea of what's coming. Truth be told, I never look at them. And I know that Candice Gish really appreciates having them for when she loads them onto the podcast format. But honestly, Shelby, I need you to really just sort of share your bio, your journey, whatever you kind of want to start off the interview. And so with that, Shelby, the call is yours.
All right. So thank you, Candice. As Candice said, we go way back. Like her drove the school bus that I was on, and we were neighbors, and then she was my babysitter, and her brother also babysat us. It's not like Barbies, and Scott and Graham like Thomas. So it was really great. We go way back. And then, so a little bit about my journey. I met my husband at 18. Fresh out of school, like just turned 18, and he was a refugee from Burma. And it was cool because, he was a refugee and a little bit darker, but, that's okay. And at 21, we were married, and looking back, our marriage was rough then, and I didn't see it. And then when I was 22, we had our daughter, who's right here. Trying to take a ponytail out. Mm-hmm. And she rocked our world in many ways. First of all, she was a difficult pregnancy. I had very heavy bleeding at 12 weeks, which was really hard. I didn't know what was going on. I knew I was miscarrying. And at 12 weeks, you're told you're safe. And the day that I started bleeding, I had actually just sent out texts to everybody, I'm pregnant, like, yay. And that afternoon, I was in the hospital. And the hospital staff was not very good, which was horrible. The nurse wanted to see if I was dilated, which apparently you shouldn't do. And the doctor comes in, no, you need to do an ultrasound, make sure the baby's alive. And she was very alive. So that was a blessing, but my life had changed. Mm-hmm. I had realized what it's like to fully give yourself to someone else who was unborn. My life was no longer my own. I could not lift a milk jug. I couldn't even sit up. I was told to lay down. And I remember the doctor telling me, don't go to the bathroom unless you have to. Like, can you imagine? Like, don't even try. Just lay down. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But I did everything I could to keep this child alive. We were 2 days over my due date. She was born. I was in labor for 11 long days. I have what's called lazy labor genes. So it starts and it stops and it starts and it stops. I was 2 centimeters for over 2 months. So it's just like, crazy with her. The reason why there's such an age gap. Well, there's many reasons, but that's one of them. And when she was born, the biggest thing that struck me was I didn't have that initial love for her. There was no rush of oxytocin. I was told that as soon as you hold that baby in your arms, you're just going to feel this overwhelming love. And Candace, it wasn't there. It was not there at all. And I mean, I was mama bear. You don't touch my baby. I will protect her with everything. But that love wasn't there. And I felt like something was wrong with me because it wasn't there. And I struggled with breastfeeding. I found out I only have mammary glands on one side. So I could breastfeed on one side and not the other. So we had to supplement, which is something I didn't want to do. I liked breastfeeding. I liked the benefits. I'm grateful I was able to half, but I wanted to full. And then to top it off, I gained 60 pounds because I was bedridden and couldn't lift anything. My husband couldn't stand me and I couldn't stand him. And he thought I was ugly and useless and just, we were in such a horrible position
You're going to make me cry, Shelby. And I know there's some mamas who are listening, so I'm kudoing you for, telling your story this transparently.
You're welcome. And I've learned that it needs to be transparent. That's why I'm so passionate about the ugly side of motherhood, because there is an ugly side. It's beautiful. And he couldn't stand the way I looked. And it was horrible. It was horrible to live with someone who wanted nothing to do with me, who I was married to, that had no value in me. It was really difficult. And then to top it off, I didn't have this love for my daughter. I felt so lost, and I felt motherhood was not fulfilling me. But I felt that it should, because I was told, once you have a child and you're a mom, it's sunshine and rainbows, and you'll be fulfilling your purpose. And I wasn't. I didn't know what my purpose was. So Candace and I had got back together while I was pregnant and got into Zija. And through there, I met so many connections who I'm actually pulling back on now in coaching, which is super cool. And really found a sense of community, a sense of purpose, and had many difficult conversations with Candace, with my husband. And it wasn't until 2 months after my daughter was born, so it was November, I very vividly remember driving in the car, and she was obviously in the back seat, and it was just me and her. And we're driving home to Edmonton from my parents in Bakerville. And I remember this wave of love finally coming over me. And it was just like I was hit by a truck. And I finally, 2 months later, loved my daughter. And it was amazing. And now she's just my everything. And it's amazing. But it took a while, which I'm now learning that I'm not solo in this, that there are other moms. And if you feel that, or if you've ever felt it, that it's normal and it's okay. And then, so that was our life. And when she turned 1.5 years old, my marriage had only gotten worse, to the point where my husband went a month without speaking to me. And I found out later he was doing drugs and other things, but that's him. And my daughter was 1.5 years. And in July 11th of 2018, I left. He was at work. We packed up the house, we left. And I left for a couple of reasons. Obviously, I left because he was mean and verbally and emotionally abusive. And our daughter was growing into having this super bold, vibrant, passionate personality that I knew if we stayed with him, she'd be silenced. And I was not okay with that. She's hard to mother, yes. However, I know that through cultivating this, she's going to go very far. And I did not want her silenced. And she was a huge reason why I left. I did not want her to see that this is how a man is to treat a woman, that he can be mean and walk all over her. And that is not okay. And I realized how broken I was. I was looking into kind of coaching and how to do that as while we were still together, because I wanted to do something. I knew my passion was for women. I knew I had a passion for mothers. I didn't know where it fit. And I knew I wanted to speak, even though I'd never spoken before. So it was just trying to figure all that out, that I knew I had this heavy weight on my heart that this is what I wanted, and I didn't know how to get there. And my husband just wanted me to go, he wanted me to be a nurse. And I'm like, there's no way I can't handle blood, but you know what? It's okay. And so then we left for a year and a half, my daughter and I. We lived with my parents, which was a challenge, but I'm so grateful for them, for the space. We were on a farm. I had a lot of help when he wasn't there. And I found coaching. I found the school I went to, the Health Coach Institute, and it changed everything. It changed the way I view him. It changed the way I view myself. I finally was able to love myself, like totally love myself, to the point where I can glance in the mirror and see myself and I'm like, oh, you're beautiful. I've never felt that before. So it was really cool to actually get to that point. And my confidence went up. I found such a passion for helping people dig and figure out their problems. What was even cooler was I could do it while raising her. I didn't have to push her to the side. I could say, you know, maybe 1 day, 2 days a week, you're in a day home, and then you're home with me the rest of the time. And she's watching me build, which was a really cool fit. And this had all happened March of 2019. So this is all really recently. And my husband we were still on the rocks. And honestly, I thought we were getting a divorce. And God had changed my life in September of 2019. He said, I want to work in your heart. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And he gave me this love back for my husband. And I didn't know until a couple months ago that there was a few key people in my husband's life very much working on him, saying, you need to smarten up. You need to treat your wife as a queen and your daughter as a princess, and love on them and treat them with the utmost respect, and you will be happy. And he did. And oh my goodness, we got back together December 1st of 2019. So very recently, but it's been night and day different. And the key pieces are, I chose not to be walked on. I chose to be better, and I chose to put myself first, and then my daughter, and then he did the same. Now coming back, there has been some rocky pieces because we became two very strong, independent people. And now coming back, we're trying to fit that in. But I have no doubt in my mind we'll make it work because we've built the tools. So now that's something I'm really passionate with moms about is, number one, there's a huge ugly side to motherhood that is starting to be talked about, but not enough. People are starting to talk about postpartum depression, but not much. I had never heard that there might not be a rush of oxytocin when you have your child and you might not fully love them. And that's something I wish I knew. You know, there's other things. There's sicknesses that happen. There's issues like people break bones during pregnancy. You never know. And it's hard. And I know having a toddler is hella hard. Oh my word. But it's amazing. You know, so that's something I'm really passionate is helping moms to realize, yes, there's an ugly side. We can survive it and thrive it. And that means putting yourself first. And another piece of that is, if motherhood is not, some people have this thing where motherhood fills them and it is their thing. And that's phenomenal. Kudos to you. But most of us are not that way. Most of us feel there's another piece that we need to contribute as an individual to society, to life, to our families, to our children. And a lot of us are not given the opportunity to figure out what that is. So I'm super passionate about helping mothers to figure out what that piece is. What is their gift to society? What is their role to play that's not just a mother? Because I don't know about you, but that term, oh, but you're a mom, actually makes me angry. Because I'm like, I'm so much more than a mom. I am not just Shelby the mom. So that is what I'm passionate about. That's what I do. And yeah, that's my story.
So Shelby, I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the other interviews that I've done, but what I have been most amazed about is that the people I've interviewed so far, I have no pressure, but there's a theme for me, which is kind of cool. And the theme really is that I'm interviewing people I have a relationship with, whether past, present, or, you know, that sort of thing. And I'm usually shocked when I take the space and create the space at what comes out of people's mouths. And I'm like, blown away. by what you just shared. I agree with you. I remember the day after I had my daughter feeling tired, overwhelmed, and I was missing her being in me, right? But
Yep.
having this sense of, wow, I still want to do the same things I wanted to do yesterday, right? I still want to chase my goals. I still want to chase my dreams. I want to get my body back. And I remember thinking, this is a really weird feeling. I feel like I'm in my body and out of my body. And I don't know what to feel. And of course, there's a range of emotions. And,
Oh yeah.
obviously, that, post my baby, one of the things that happened for me was a divorce, right? And the challenges of that, we didn't weather that well. And, for me, there's been, no blame there. But I remember distinctly that being envious of those couples who seem to bond over baby. And for me it was like, this is like the scariest freakinest thing ever, and it's having a huge impact on a relationship I cared very much for. And obviously hormones and sleep and like, yeah, and I know we've talked about that, but I joke a lot of the time. But yeah, there are things about my body that nobody bothered to tell me. And I try to tell women about them now and be like, by the way, things are just going to shift and change, which when I thought about it, makes a lot of sense, right? I'm going to push,
Yeah.
6-8 pounds out of, a space that fits. Of course there's going to be some change. um I get it, right? Some women lose their hair. I lost my eyelashes at 26 weeks, Shelby, and I love my eyelashes. Like, they were kind of like this thing, people were like, you have beautiful eyelashes, and I was like, I know, and I lost them, right? Alopecia kicked
Oh
in,
my
and I was like,
goodness.
what? Yeah.
No, I remember, yeah, losing a ton of hair. I also, because of the stress of having her, sorry, we're moving outside now.
Yeah, I get it.
The stress of having her, and then the stress of being in such a toxic marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and a piece of it for him, not that I want to be like, give him an excuse, but she triggered a ton of childhood crap for him.
They do.
He was abused as a kid, and then to top it off, he grew up in a country with the longest ongoing genocide in history, and seen horrible things. So having her was like horrible.
Yes.
And so that's what really ruined us. So that's hard too. And that's something I talk to women about as well, is those who are in interracial marriages, because that is so common now, that there's going to be difficulty.
And I think too, I understand now that there's the sense of community is so huge, and I know that you thankfully had community to be able to go home to your parents. So did I. And yeah, I think that something as big and as life altering as a child coming into the world is it has an effect on both sides, right? Which has been an interesting piece for me, and continuing now that I'm starting to try to be a voice in my own life, not just for the feminine issues that I see as a challenge, but also for the masculine issues, right? Like, I tell people all the time, International Women's Day is like March 8th, right? And International Men's Day is November 19th. And people are like, do they need a day? And I'm like, of course they need a day. We need a day, because yes, there are some big differences between men and women, but there are also some really big issues between, like, a white woman, right? To be frankly, right? We get some extra privileges. And so I've been trying to talk about those things that are really difficult to talk about, if for no other reason than to say, hey, we may not know what we're talking about because we're not in anybody else's shoes. And so let's just, take a step back and take a look at that. So I love that you have grown through that. Thank you for sharing your story so transparently. So you've shifted into coaching. Talk to me more about that. What does that look like for someone? Because of course, part of the reason I'm doing a platform like this, Shelby, is to give women like you who have something you want to share access to networks, because I really think, as we've seen with COVID, that things travel fast if we can connect the network. So let's talk about that and what the next, I don't know, maybe year or two looks like for you. So if somebody is sort of feeling stirred and just wants to reach out to you, what can they expect when they do?
So a couple things. I'm working right now on I don't like the term course because that's not what it is, but almost like a 6 weeks retreat, maybe we'll call it.
Sure.
Called Keeping Mama's Sanity. And I'd like to launch that at the end of May, beginning of June, where moms can come and learn about how to take care of themselves first before they try to take care of their family, because you cannot give when there's nothing in you to give. And when you feel like you have no purpose, drive, or desire, you can't give. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I also offer a 90-day program on confident, sexy, and free, and helping women to feel confident, sexy, and free, because I'm also a huge body positive advocate after going through what I went through. And women, our bodies change so much, and they will never be pre-baby. And there's so many things like, oh, I'm pre-baby, but no, you will never be pre-baby. Your body will in some way be different, and we need to learn that that's okay and beautiful, because your body did something huge. Like,
yes,
that's not tiny.
Really, like when I think about that, I was like, I was running 2 businesses and grew a baby and popped her out and just kept right on running. Like, it's like, that's kind of incredible. Not kind of incredible, it's very incredible.
Incredible.
Right? I think too, I love that we are having this conversation about body positivity, because I know that everybody, goes on their own journey to figure out what that is. But I look in the mirror and go, well, that's different, and that's always going to be different. And I don't know that I want to change it either. That's what's interesting, is I'm like, I want to feel good when I take my clothes off, for me, right? Because, well, it's just me. And at the end of the day, you and I are very similar in that sense. Our daughters have become our whole world, right? And there's certainly an impact on other relationships in that. But I feel like, these first few years are so crucial to their development, that, showing them this powerhouse way to be, everybody's got their own take on that kind of thing. But I think that it's about having a conversation that makes somebody think, so that, somebody who's listening, right, pausing for effect there, we are out there, right? The tribe is out there, and just go and find it. And right, no more need for the trolls or the bullies. It's just do you, be you, and be at home in it.
Exactly. Another thing, I love how you said, like, these first few years are so crucial. One of the things that I do coach on is beliefs and identity. And our beliefs and identity are imprinted before the age of 5, from in utero to 5. That's when your core beliefs, like those, I'm not enough, I take up too much space, that's when they're actually imprinted on you, which is hard as a mom who's a coach, because I'm like, I don't want to screw her up, and I know there's going to be something.
You are screwing her up. Sorry.
And one of the things that I thought was, it's probably the way you think you're doing well is probably the one that's actually screwing her up. So, as moms, it is what it is.
I think being a mom, I think being a parent, right? Let's not leave out the men, but I think being a parent is a courageous act. I think about that all the time, right? And I think about some of the choices I've made, Shelby, in the last few years, right? They have not been easy for me as a parent. They've not been easy for me as a person, and they've not been easy for me as a woman, right? Because like you, right, made some choices that were the best that you could make at the time, right? Hindsight's always going to be 20/20, but we do the best with what we have at the time. And I think even about some, recent choices and decisions I've made, and sometimes you're coming from a space of, it's not about putting your daughter first, it's about doing the best with what you've got to just keep moving forward and holding space and creating something for. And I think that we have to remember that motherhood is a courageous act. And so, Mama, when you're waking up and you're feeling overwhelmed, remind yourself that the rest of us are like, oh my word. Right?
It is.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's something you don't, sorry, she thought she was a spider.
That's okay. You are the coach of mamas. That's the way this is.
The reality of motherhood.
She's doing very well, to be completely honest with you. She's
become a
on
pro at
point.
this.
She's amazing. Oh, yeah. No, I get it. And Nara will do this thing where she'll like sneak into the camera so she can be like, hi. Just like,
Yeah.
but the reality is that
Had-
I've promised people these are going to be unedited, and there's a reason for that. Because I do see all of the amazing videos, but I think that people right now are craving an authenticity. And Shelby, recently I've been trying to live from this place of like really raw honesty, right? So I think it's easy to put our best out there, right? Especially we want to be seen that way. We don't necessarily want to be vulnerable. We don't necessarily want all of those things. But I think vulnerability and not having your poop together is a really powerful place to be. I think people actually prefer it when you're like, no, I don't have it figured out. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've made some really big mistakes, like even recently. And I'm not so sure how I'm going to adjust to the guilt of that. I'm pretty sure I'm screwing my daughter up. I'm pretty sure I don't have it all together. But what I do know is that there are people who are here to support. You can call in your tribe, right? Not to sound woo-woo, but like I've been looking for spiritual midwives because I chose to use the midwifery to bring Anara into the world. And for me, a midwife is somebody who basically holds space, right? They're not going to rescue you from what you're going through the way a doctor might, right? Put you in stirrups and say, let's deliver this baby. Not that there's anything wrong with that, okay? But for me, a midwife is more like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to hold some space. This is all you, chickie, right?
Yep.
And that's been kind of the people I've been kind of saying, hey, would you... And interestingly enough, other people are messaging me, right? Which is what happens when you start to show yourself and say, hey, I'm here. I don't have my poop together. And, I'm bleeding over here. And, oh my goodness, I'm messing up over here. And it's really interesting how when you come together and realize that we're not actually all that alone, right? Which I think is challenging right now as we're socially distant. I'm an introvert, Shelby, and today someone's like, what do you need today? And I said, honestly, I need a hug. Like, I could really use a hug.
Yep, I feel that. I get it from my daughter. I'm like, we need to hug each other. My husband's a hugger, and that's okay. That's him.
Yeah.
But with her, she is. And it's interesting you say about doing what we need to do. One of the things lately we've had to do is I struggle with adrenal fatigue, and that's just from being overstressed and all that. And so lately it's been, okay, she's awake, iPad, come to bed with me, I get more sleep. And I have been feeling the guilt of that. I have been struggling with, I don't want her to grow up being like, oh, mom was tired all the time, even though I have been. Switching out some foods, though, has really helped. But today we were talking, and I said, Delira, we have a clock that it turns green when she's allowed to get up. Otherwise, she'd be not sleeping. She struggled to sleep from the get-go. Like, that kid never napped.
I remember.
Oh, my word. And so it's much better, but she could be up at like 4 and then stay awake till midnight. Like, that's just who she is. And she's doing her thing. But so I told her this morning, I said, tell you what, if you stay in bed till the clock turns green, I will also get up when the clock turns green. And she was so excited. Like, all right.
I love it.
That's how we do it. And it's little things like that we do to cope. Delira and I are both very extroverted. So one of the things we've started doing is picnics in our living room when it was cold, and now on our patio, or, like, Mama, you do what you can to survive.
Mama, you do what you can to survive. Oh my goodness, that's totally the title of this video. I always wait for something through there. That's totally it. Mama, you do what you have to do to survive. And I think that that's true. Yeah.
It is, and you might look back and be like, oh, I could have done that differently. But at the same time, no, you couldn't have, because you can only do what you're able to do with the resources and the energy that you have. And, we as moms,
it's all good. No, you're good, babe.
With the resources and the energy that we have, and we wouldn't have been able to do things differently. Like, with me, I loved living with I didn't love. It was a love-hate thing.
It's a love-hate thing, yes. Yes.
And when I moved out, my mom's like, it's time. I'm like, I know it's time, and we have a great relationship. Looking back, I would have loved to have rented my own place. However, I would not be coaching. I would not be an entrepreneur running my own business. And I would not have been able to put the amount of money into my business had I, been working and trying to do my own thing. Yes, I love your car. Thank you. You're welcome. So that's something, with moms, I think there needs to be grace, because we get so, we see just the best of what other people are putting out, and that's not reality. The reality is your kid is running around. I don't know about you, but mine still does not know what privacy means. And
privacy is an illusion. Yes,
yes,
definitely an illusion.
So, and it's just, you do what you can. And the reality is motherhood, this piece is not long, like 18 years, if that, really. And when you think about the scale of life, that's not very long. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
it's all good.
Just mom, you're doing well. That's something I really want to encourage moms. You're doing well with what you can. And it can only be better when you've taken care of yourself enough to make it better. You know what I'm saying? So,
I do. Well, Shelby, I appreciate that. And for anybody who's like listening and feeling like they'd like to find you, I always make sure that in the box below, of course, is all of your contact information. So we'll have the links and all that kind of stuff so they can find you. And be able to connect with you and outreach and all that stuff. Yeah. So again, for anybody who got some value out of this, especially you mamas, like us, love us, share us, subscribe, leave us some love, because it matters a lot. I know, everybody's always like, and subscribe, but really it does. It matters, and sort of is that extra boost. And then, it helps us find tribe, right? That's how the algorithms work. Is it helps the AI to know who else might benefit from this. So even if you're not brave enough to comment or anything like that, a like, a love, or a share, or a subscribe pushes this message out to somebody who just might need to hear it. So with that, Shelby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I hope you and your tiny human love the rest of the day. Enjoy the sunshine, enjoy being outside. And we'll have to catch up with you again soon and see how things are continuing to develop in your life.
Yes, I'm excited. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Shelby.